Hi everyone, welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm your host Rajni Bharara. And before I move ahead, I would like to very quickly read out this very important disclaimer which is here on screen. By watching our videos, you agree and understand by the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. All right, after this very important disclaimer, welcome back everyone. How are you all? So today, we are honored to have a true authority in U.S. consular matters joining us on the show, Ms. Swati Patel Vasan. With nearly 14 years of U.S. federal government service, Ms. Patel Vasan has an extensive background that includes work as a foreign services officer with the U.S. State Department, as well as an immigration officer with the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. Her last diplomatic posting was at the US Consulate General in Mumbai, India, where she dealt with a wide range of consular issues, including complex cases and policy work. Currently serving as an Argo Visa officer, Swati continues to help individuals navigate the intricate world of US visa strategy and interview preparation. With close to 100,000 visa adjudications under her belt, ranging from non immigrant and immigrant visas to citizenship cases, she brings a wealth of experience and insider knowledge to the table. So, we are incredibly excited to discuss the topic B1, B2 visa processes, interview tips, and what applicants can do to increase their chances of success. And like I said, we will be discussing what's the secret to getting your B2, B1 and B2 visa approved with none other than Swati. So without any further ado, let's welcome her to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show and also to our show. Hi, Swati. Welcome back. It's always good to have you. And, it's so nice to see you again.
Thank you so much, Rajni. Thank you so much for having me again, Argo Visa. We're here and happy to help answer all the questions that you have for us.
Thank you so much. And Swati, I would quickly like to, I think something is missing. Right now, let me quickly. Okay, I guess here it is. It was the header. So it's all set now. We have Immigration and Jobs Talk Show's logo and also Argo Visa's logo. So we are good to go now. So now, without any further ado, let me quickly start the show by asking you. Also, before, guys, we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also on Twitter. And the handle is Immigration Talk Show and also on Argo Visa's channel. So don't forget to subscribe to both of us. And after this, Swati, okay. So now my very first question to you is, I know a lot of people by now, they already know this about this. But for the ones who's joining us for the first time and also for the first timers who will be appearing for the interview, they always have this question in their mind that when they appear for the interview, what is that the consular officers are going to ask them in the interview? Right, so that is one thing which I think a lot of people connect with us and also ask us, can you help us with the questions consular officers are going to ask us in the interview? So right now we have you and the best person to answer this question. So if you can please help the audiences by telling that what exactly are the questions that the consular officers ask in the interview.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked this because we do get asked this a lot, even in our consultations. And as I tell everybody else, and as any other Argo officer would say, there is no sort of magic question. There's no sort of magic answer. The officers don't have a cheat sheet that they're going to look at for any sort of visa category. So they're not going to say, all right, this is a first time B1, B2 applicant. Let's go to page number 1, questions number 1 through 5. Nothing like that exists. It is all made up on the spot, the questions. Now, a question can be asked, the same kind of topic can be asked in 5 different ways. So there's no particular wording. An officer is just looking for a few things. So based on that, they're going to ask in their own style.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. So does it also depend upon the country they come from? Because let's say if one is from India or maybe someone is from Pakistan or UK, Canada, does it also depend on that? Vary from country to country?
Absolutely not. Okay. So for a
Okay.
B1, B2 visa, an officer is looking for three main things. One, what
Mhm.
is your intention and purpose? And the second
Mhm.
thing is, what are your financial and home ties? And the third, will you use this visa correctly and will you return to your home country? So those are the only concerns that a visa officer actually has for a B1, B2. They can ask you any sort of question related to that and to ascertain those kinds of things.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you so much for answering the question, Swati. Also, okay. So let me also ask you that in how much time do, because it mostly, the interviews, it hardly takes 2 to 3 minutes, right, for each applicant, because they have a long line of people waiting to get interviewed. So in how much time would you say that they normally decide that, okay, we are going to give this person a visa stamp and they can travel abroad?
Right. So usually it's kind of faster than that. It depends on, that does depend on the post, okay, and how backlogged that post is, how many applicants do they have. So I have done consultations where somebody does get 5 minutes at their interview, which is quite long. In India, you get maybe a minute. And if you've been denied, that time actually decreases because they are already evaluating the previous notes as well. So it can be even like 30 seconds. And it's not really the length of the interview that you have that makes it better or not. It's about kind of the quality of the interview that can help a visa officer decide or not. So usually, a lot of people in our questionnaires say the last question that the visa officer asked me was this. This was my last answer. And then they gave me the 214B slip. So most of the time, and from my personal experience as well, the officers have already made a decision before that last question and answer. So it's not the last question or answer that determines your yes or no. It's everything that's usually happening before that.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much again for answering the question, Swati. I can already see a lot of people commenting, and Zion is here. Hi, Zion. And then Yash is here. Hi, Yash. And Asra is also here. And people are already looking, trying to get an answer from you. Some is related to B1, B2, but also, two of them are also related to F1. So today we are not covering F1 topic, guys. So if you can please stick to the topic, maybe if you can ask related to B1, B2, so that'll be great. We'll be more than happy to take your question. And yes, definitely. I think Zion here is saying, hey, do can you please do for F1 visa next? Definitely, we'll definitely try to get Swati again because she's really busy. And I think we are doing this show after 2 months, right? 1 or 2 months, right, Swati?
Yeah, at
So
least, yeah, approximately 2 months. Yeah.
yeah. So guys, if she can give us time, why not? We would love to have her every week. Thank you so much, Zion, for your question. And Swati, again, I would like to come back to my questions, and I would
Mhm.
like to ask you that, if what factors actually lead to B1, B2 visa denials, even when applicants meet all the technical requirements?
Okay, so in technical requirements, I'm assuming you mean the DS 160 is filled out correctly and they've paid their fee, right?
Yeah, correct.
Um, so so it's not, so the DS 160 for a visa officer is kind of a starting point. It's what they're going to look at, review, and use to kind of start asking their questions. So
Hmm.
it's actually mostly how you interview that affects your approval or your denial. It really does boil down to how well you can interview, how well you can explain yourself. And I'm sure this question is going to come up later and we'll address it later about documents, but it's not about the documents. That's why that interview is so fast, okay? Because it's about a brief conversation that you're having with that visa officer. And most of the time, people are not prepared to answer questions for a US visa interview. And that's usually how it goes downhill.
Wow, not prepared to answer. Can you elaborate a bit on that? I mean, what is that they are not willing to answer?
Yeah, they're not, it's not that they're not willing to answer. It's just that it they think most of the time what we see is that most people assume that they should just answer the question directly as it's asked. And unless they get asked something specifically, that they're not supposed to talk about it. And that's completely not correct. Okay. In fact, you want to do the opposite. You want to be
Right.
proactive with your case and your situation, especially because you have such a short amount of time to explain what your intention and purpose is, what your financial and home ties are, and why you're going to use this visa correctly and come back home. So it is, you mostly people are answering just very directly, one word answers, and then they're doing a full stop. So that, and then they're waiting for the next question. Now, usually that goes downhill because then the visa officer gets frustrated if they have to ask a follow-up question on the same topic, or they need to pull teeth to get information from you. And they don't really have the time or the patience to be able to do that. So they're looking to you to be able to give a comprehensive answer to one topic that they're asking you about.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much again for answering the question, Swati. Now, I would like to shift the gears and maybe quickly move on to some more interesting questions. I'm saying interesting because it is also related to a little bit about politics, not completely about politics, and but still, I would like to take this. In the light of recent global events, how have the criteria for issuing B1, B2 visas evolved to address security concerns while still promoting tourism and business travel?
Okay, so I did see this in your questionnaire. So I want to ask you, what particularly are you referring to? Because there's a lot of global events that are going on.
You
So I
know,
kind of want to understand what you're talking about.
so when it comes to recent talking about recent global events, what happens is sometimes two country it let me ask you in this way. So let's suppose if two countries have some differences, so does that also make it difficult for people to travel to the country? Let's say if there is something going on between a particular country and b country, so does it also make it difficult for people to get the visa for that country?
Yes, absolutely, it can, right? Because
Mhm.
it's on a bigger scale of bilateral
Right.
relations and multilateral relations, and there are a lot of
Right.
things that are going on behind the scenes. So, without going into a lot of details, because we're going to try to stay away from
Yeah.
geopolitical issues and politics, but kind of just to give an example here with, for example, U.S., Russia, the situation going on there. You do see a lot more Russian applicants that are having difficulty getting any sort of visa, or they have
Uh-huh.
to go outside of their country to be able to apply as a third country national. So, yes, things that are happening between the countries when there are tensions, that does happen. You see that even on larger scales, not even just B1, B2. You see that affecting even diplomatic visas, for example, when there's any sort of high level incident that kind of happens, usually that gets affected on a much larger scale with
Mhm.
missions and their staffing and the diplomatic visas that they will issue. So it does have a trickle down effect in terms of, maybe processing, maybe staffing. If they're forced to close down certain consulates or embassies, that can obviously affect how quickly you can get a B1, B2 appointment. All of these things do kind of get combined, and but there's no sort of one direct incident or pinpointed thing that this happened and therefore this is going to happen. It's usually accumulation of a bunch of factors that go into it.
Right, absolutely. Okay. So it's like, when you're having tensions with your family relatives, you always are thinking that whether should you go to their home or not. So it is sometimes something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for answering that question, Swati. Okay, before I take up again my question, let me quickly move on to a few of the viewers' questions because we are continuously getting a lot of questions from the viewers also. So, okay, so I think let me first take Yash Sharma's question. So, Yash is here and he says, I am self employed as a marble and granite wholesaler, retailer, and supplier. I started my business on July 14th, 2023, and I have all my business documents and GSTR returns ready. My appointment is scheduled in November. Given that my business is new, could this affect the likelihood of my visa being approved?
Yes, absolutely. Because one of the things they'll want to know is uh, what are your ties. So if your work is your tie, and if it's relatively new, you would want to explain what did you do before that. So maybe this is a new business, but maybe you have work experience in the same industry, or maybe you switch fields. But or why did you start this business? Or if you have a new business, then how many employees do you have? What is your take-home pay? What is your annual, like, what is your turnover for your company? How many employees do you have? All of these things is what can help. It doesn't mean just because you have a new business, that doesn't mean you have ties. There could be other things that can support you for that, regardless.
Okay, so Yash, I hope you have got your answer. Thank you so much for putting your question, and let us know if you have another follow up. We would like to take that as well. And let's quickly come to Astra. So Astra has also asked a question. It's not related to B1, B2, but it's related to F1. So maybe Astra, what we can do is we can take this question maybe when we have the F1 session. But for now, let's take this question, but in a B1, B2 way. So if you can answer, Swati, can you please give tips for an F1 visa also after being rejected? So let's say not F1, but B1, B2. Would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. So if you've been rejected, it definitely does become harder, okay? Because now the visa officer is, they're still going to be multitasking, typing, asking you questions, looking at you, looking at their computer, doing all of this stuff really rapidly, seeing your DS 160. But if you've had a denial, one denial or more, they're going to also be seeing those notes. And so it's highly likely that they're going to probably ask you something from that. So you should be prepared to be able to address what has happened in any of your past interviews as well. And the sorry, repeat that question for me again. So I want to make sure I cover it all,
So
because
she
it's gone
actually
off.
wanted to know, can you please give
After
tips for
being
an,
rejected.
yeah.
Okay, so after being rejected, you want to make sure that you answer what has changed for you. Okay, and it
Mhm.
might not be that something significant has changed for you, because if you applied last week and now you're applying again, then there's not going to be necessarily a significant change. But the goal is that you want to explain something that you didn't get to explain to the visa officer before. That's the key right there.
Okay, all right. So, Astra, I really wanted to take your question, but it was not related to B1, B2. But I still try to, take your name and also take your question, but in a slightly in a different manner. But thank you so much for watching the webinar. And now Tazim is also here, and Tazim says, please give advice after being rejected for the first time, B1, B2. I think we have already taken this, right? You already took
Yeah,
this.
yes, it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, Tazeen, thank you so much. Please, if you have another question, please also keep on posting that. And now we have one more question from Baba. And Baba says, my appointment is in Mumbai. I have sponsor for video shooting. So we have chance my okay. So maybe he wants to know that he has been sponsored for video shooting. So does he has a chance of his visa getting approved?
Okay, so I'm going to take this on the broader the picture of an invitation letter, okay, because that will probably cover for a lot more people. That if you have a sponsor or an invitation letter for
Mhm.
a B1, B2, that doesn't actually hold a lot of weight, okay, because you still need to qualify for that visa for that visa on your own anyway. So it's about your ties, it's about your intention and purpose, it's about you being able to support yourself and this trip. It may be in actuality that a relative is sponsoring your visit, or that a company or this maybe this film festival is sponsoring you, etc. That can be part of your case, but they will not be able to approve you solely because of that, because you still have to qualify. The law presumes that you're an intending immigrant. It's the way it's written. So you're already guilty when you approach that window. And in a B1, B2, it has to be your own kinds of qualifications that make you approved, even if in reality somebody else is maybe sponsoring or paying for your trip. Now, that is completely
Mhm.
different than an immigrant visa, which I know we're not talking about here, but immigrant visas, yes, that's when you want that sponsorship and that
Mhm.
invitation letter and all those supporting documents, but not for B1, B2.
Okay, all right. So, Baba, I hope you have got your answer. Thank you so much for posting your question. And one comment and one this question, not question, but a comment from a viewer which has made me really happy is from Jude. And Jude says, "I got my visa approved. Thank you all for your tips. God bless." Thank you so much, Jude. And I think she's thanking you, Swati.
Oh,
So this makes me so happy. What do you have to say?
thank you, Jude. I'm so glad that our tips have helped you guys, and we look forward to helping a lot more people. It's really fantastic news. We love hearing when people come back with feedback and said, that their visa is approved. Even especially ones that come to us after they've been denied a few times. Those are even more priceless. So thank you
Yeah,
so much.
that's true. Agree, agree. After being rejected, after being denied, it makes a person so much demotivated, and also the person is so sad whether next time will the visa get approved, and the tension is so much. So when the visa gets selected and does get approved, it must be making you guys so happy. Just by reading this, it makes me so happy. So I can imagine your happiness, right, Swati?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We love getting the feedback emails that give us all the positive feedback and when we can help people genuinely. So we love that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jude. I wish you all the best for your future. Now, okay, I think Tazim is back with a follow up. So, I said if you have a follow up, please let us know. And Tazim quickly posted a follow up. So, great,
Okay.
Tazim. So, Tazim says, in my interview, after long interview, around 15 to 16 questions, officer denied me. Do I think positive in my interview was little long?
So you do you think positive your interview was a little long? So yes, some people I guess think that if they got asked more questions, then that's a better interview. But like I said, it's not really about that length of the interview. Okay, there could be a lot of reasons that you might have gotten a longer interview. It could be the country that you were interviewing in. Maybe they have a lot more time to be able to spend. It could also be maybe it's a new officer and they're kind of nervous and they don't have a lot of experience under their belt. So in order to be really, really sure that they are going to ask you a bunch of questions. The once that officer becomes a lot more seasoned, it's going to become a lot shorter. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tazim, for your follow up. I hope you have got the answer. And Swati, I really want to get back to my questions, but I don't think the viewers want me to get back to my questions because they really have posted a lot of questions here. So let me quickly take their first. So, okay, let's take Rohini's question. So, Rohini says, I have few questions. Please suggest me. Do we need to provide financial evidence or an invitation letter for my family to visit my sister in the US, given that my dad and Jiju will cover the expenses?
Okay, so again, invitation letter doesn't hold a lot of weight. All right, so you can take the invitation letter that says, the XYZ person is asking you to come there and that's going to cover all the expenses, but it doesn't really matter for a visa officer. They're unlikely to actually see that invitation letter, and anybody can write an invitation letter. That's not the point. It's more about you being able to say how you can support or how this trip is going to be paid for. Okay, so in terms of evidence, you would take that with you. So if you are paying it, or if your Jiju or your dad is going to pay that, you're going to take that with you. But it's more about being able to explain, why are they paying it? Why can you not pay it? Those are the things that is going to be more important. And then if the visa officer, you can allude to the fact that you have the documents that are financial evidence for you, but whether the officer asks for it or not is a totally different thing. So you can bring it up in your interview that, my dad and my brother-in-law are going to cover all my expenses, and I have those documents if you'd like to see. That's how you want to bring it up. You never want to shove that paperwork through the window to the officer. You just want to bring it up like that and then leave it. And then the officer can decide, yes, okay, let me see that. Let me see your financial evidence and how you're going to support yourself. But it's highly unlikely that that's going to be seen. So they're going to more want to know, how are you going to pay for this, or why are they paying and why can't you pay? That's more
Mm.
important.
Okay, okay. All right. She also has a part two and a second question. And she says, address in DS 160 and passport are different as we shifted house after getting passports. Now we don't have any present house address proofs. Will that be a problem?
No. I mean, the short answer to that is no, okay? Because I mean, not all passports have addresses. US passports, we don't even have an address, okay? Because it's just not the way it is. I know Indian passports have an address, but you may move. So DS 160, it's more important about what your current address is. It doesn't necessarily have to match your passport.
Right, right. And also another question from her is during biometric, should we carry any document like work experience, education, date of birth, etc., or just passport, visa application details, DS 160 submitted page are sufficient?
Right. It's more the latter. Okay. And when you get that appointment confirmation, it will tell you what are the documents you need to submit. What are the documents you need to carry, bring with you. That's all you want to take and bring with you. They're not going to really take anything else from you at that time. Just take what is asked for.
All right, okay. So, Rohini, I hope all you follow all these tips given by Swati, and I hope you get your visa approved. Thank you so much for posting your questions. Now, let's quickly come back to Tahir because Tahir also is waiting for his turn, and he really has a lot of please written on his question. So, let me quickly take that for you, Swati. So he says, can you please tell about B1, B2? If I got denial before, what I have to do in the next interview? Please, please explain me what to do, how to answer, please. So as you can see, a lot of please. I know we have already taken this, but if you can please, I would also say, please, Swati, if you can answer.
Okay. So, one thing you will want to do is definitely interview differently. Okay. You're going to want to, you probably likely interviewed how most people interview. You got asked a question, you answered directly, you waited for the next question, you again answered directly, and that's it. You were waiting to talk about the other ties that you had, and you were only going to mention them if you were asked. Okay. Again, this is not what you want to do. So, how you want to change it for the next time is be proactive. All right. So, if they ask you a question, any kind of question, your strategy should be the same. You want to answer the actual question, but then you want to add additional specific and useful information each time, each question that you get asked. That's the more important thing. And each time that you answer, you always want to insert your strengths and tell the visa officer something that they don't know about you or they didn't know from your previous interview. That's really the key.
Okay, all right. That's a great tip, Tahir. I hope you follow that. Thank you so much for your question. And guys, also please let us know where you're watching this session from, which country, which state, India, UK, US, Canada, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Please also let us know in the comment section. And after Tahir, we have from Zeni, and Zeni says, I'm from Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
Yeah, this is my first time to go interview. I have interview in coming November. All thing is covered by organization. What question can I expect from them?
Okay, same thing. There's no specific question. Okay, they're just trying to understand your intent, purpose, your financial and home ties, and will you use this visa correctly and come back. So it
Mhm.
can be anything, and any of these B1, B2, it can be. I can ask you about your intention and purpose in 5 or 10 different ways. Okay, why do you want to go to the States? When do you want to go to the States? Have you traveled before outside of your country? That's still asking about the same thing, but I'm going about it a indirect way. So there's no set questions that they're going to ask you, but they're going to want to know, why are you going to the United States? If you're, in your case, if your expenses are covered by your organization, then there's likely going to be, how are you going to pay for this? All right. And then that could be worded in any sort of way also. So you would want to explain to them that your organization is paying or your company is paying. Why are they paying? Maybe it's a business trip. Maybe it's a work conference. So you want to explain to them why are they covering your expenses? But along with that, make sure that you also talk about your own financial stability. That's the perfect opportunity. So you can say, well, I'm going in November because there's this work conference that's paid for my organization. I have been with this organization for the last 5 years. I make a salary of XYZ $1,000 per annum. And but this is a work trip, so they're paying. When I traveled last year to XYZ country, I paid for it myself because I make this salary and I have the savings. Now that is what I mean about giving a comprehensive answer. That
Okay.
helps you and supports you.
Right, right. And also, Swati, will it make a difference if you're traveling first time to US, and before that, if you haven't been to a foreign country, will that also make a difference?
So it helps you
Mhm.
if you've traveled a lot. International
Right.
travel helps you a lot. Okay. And
Mhm.
that's really a good strength for people that they sometimes forget to bring up. So when I see people that have traveled a lot, I really encourage them to use that because what does that do? That tells a visa officer automatically, even if they don't directly ask you about travel, they're
Mhm.
noticing it. Okay. So they're going to be flipping through your passport anyways while they're multitasking, so they can see stamps, visas, etc. They may ask you directly. Even if they don't and you have travel, you want to bring it up because
Mhm.
good travel shows a visa officer that you have the financial means to take care of hotel, airfare, sightseeing,
Absolutely.
food, all of that kind of stuff, and that you are not staying in a foreign country. You are going for a short visit and you're
Right.
coming back to your home country. So it automatically, indirectly kind of tells a visa officer, hey, they have this ability to do this and they're not staying there. So they're likely probably going to do the same thing with their US visa.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for answering the question, Swati and Zenny. I hope you have got the answer. Thank you so much. If you have a follow up, please let us know. And Hussein is also here, and Hussein has posted a question. He says, my I-140 is under review in USCIS from Feb 2024 for EB3 visa, other worker category. What do you think? How much time USCIS will take for approval?
Okay, so this is definitely not a B1, B2 related question at all,
Uh-huh.
but and also Hussein, this is kind of
Yeah.
anybody's guess. Okay, so
Mhm.
nobody can really tell you. It's like an administrative processing. There's not a certain time. It's really kind of complicated on how long that can take. So honestly, for me to tell you any sort of date or anything would be unrealistic. I'm sorry, but that is the truth.
Okay, okay. So, Hussein, you will have to wait and see for yourself, in how much time will it be getting approved. So, just have some patience, wait for a bit, and it will get approved, hopefully. And all the best. Thank you so much, Hussein, for your question. And if you have a B1, B2 question, please, you're more than welcome to post it in the comments. Meanwhile, let's quickly take John Venture's question. So, John says, my 5I1 I visa denial with the latest one being early this year. Can one get a B1, B2 for tourism purposes? I have a travel history of France and the recent one, UK.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask a clarifying question here. So, what is I visa? I'm assuming you had 5 denials, but what I'm not sure which category it is. Is it a B1, B2? Could you answer that for us, John? And then maybe we can get back to you.
Yeah, if you can please do that, John. We'll be waiting for your answer. So, okay, I think Tazim we have already taken, and let's take Saurabh's question. So Saurabh says, in Nepal, visa officers are rejecting applicant by saying you have been rejected previously. Why are you here again? And reject us even without letting us tackle the question. Is this even fair? So I think can we
Okay,
really
so I
answer
can,
what is fair and what is
yeah,
not?
so yes, right. So see, Saurabh, I can understand from the human perspective and empathetic, be empathetic towards you that it probably doesn't seem fair and you probably felt like you didn't get an interview. But technically you still got an interview because they're asking you right there. You have been rejected previously. Why are you here again? That's your question. So you did get a question, even if it's just one question. Now, this is a good segue for me to address another question that comes up all the time, okay, from applicants. Is that denial question or the change question? This is just like that. All right. Now, I think those are the best kinds of questions you can get because they are an opportunity question. Most of the time, applicants are most afraid of why were you denied or why are you here again or what has changed for you. That is the best kind of question you can get because it's an opportunity question. That is where the officer is actually giving you an absolutely clean slate. They're saying you were rejected before. Tell me why you should be approved. That is what basically a denial, change, or why are you here again question means. You were denied before. Tell me why I should approve you. Okay, so that's what they're asking for. So in that kind of question, that is what you want to tell them. Now you want to tell them, why do you think you still qualify for this visa? That is your goal to answer in that first question.
Right, right. Okay, so Saurabh, I hope you've got the answer. Thank you so much for your question. And after Saurabh, let's quickly take Aditi's question. So Aditi wants to know what to answer for why were you denied before for B1, B2?
Okay, so I'm just going to take off from the last answer I give on this. So a visa officer is not expecting you to know exactly why you got denied. If you've gotten denied before, you'd likely have a 214B letter, which is pretty generic, right? And they have the notes in the system for why you got denied. They're not going to tell you specifically why you got denied. So they already know they're not expecting you to know exactly. Again, this is that opportunity. Okay, so you don't want to focus on what I tell most clients and applicants is that you don't want to focus on assuming and guessing about why you got denied because you don't know anyways. They're not expecting you to know. So you want to take that as the opportunity. You can just say a little bit. That's what I recommend. Just say like a few words as to why you think, and then move on to why you think you should get qualified. Okay, so for most people, it's like I was nervous, I wasn't able to communicate, etc. But then they leave it at that. Okay, they just stop there and then they wait for the officer to ask the next question. Now that's not so useful. You want to take that further. So in that same question, why were you denied before for B1, B2? I'm not sure what your particular situation is, but for example, it could be, I was really nervous and I couldn't explain that XYZ. That's your goal. Like you can just say you were really nervous, but then explain the things that you didn't get to explain before. That's what you want to do with a question that's like a denial question or a change question.
Right, right. And Swati, also, should the answers from the candidates be short or should it be elaborate?
So they should not be short. Well, it's like I mean, there's no perfect magic answer, right? So you
Yeah.
want to, what I tell people is that you want to give an answer in approximately 3 sentences worth of information. All right. So that should be answering the question and then adding specific additional information. That should give you about 3 sentences worth of stuff to say. The visa officer will cut you off for a variety of reasons, and you don't really need to worry about that. But if you're giving each answer like this for whatever questions you get asked, whether it's one question or 10 to 15 questions, if you consistently stay with this kind of strategy, that will serve you quite well. Okay, it won't frustrate a visa officer if you're responding that way. Most people sometimes think that, they're afraid to say more, but you should say more. You want to say
Right.
more, but you don't just want to be generic. You want to be a lot, very, very, very specific with what you say.
Right, because sometimes your silence can also confuse the officer, right?
Yeah, I mean, they want you to tell them stuff that helps you get approved, right? So you want to be
Absolutely.
specific with that. It's not about filling the space with 3 sentences worth of information and not saying anything. A lot of clients come, prepared with. If I got asked this, and they've gone to 100 forums and Telegram and all that kind of stuff, and they come with, okay, I think I'm going to get asked any of these 100 questions, right? And they come with already this perfect, beautifully written, grammatically correct kind of
Perfectly
answer.
structured answers.
Perfectly structured answer, which actually says absolutely nothing. Okay. To the visa
Okay.
officer, it says nothing. All right. Because one, it backfires for you because it sounds like you're memorized because you've looked at it and looked at it and looked at it
Right.
and memorized it. So now you're sounding like a robot who's been coached. Okay. So that usually will backfire. The other thing is that you're speaking and you're saying things that sound really, really nice, but they're not particular to your particular situation. And that's the goal. You want to make it relevant to you. A visa officer is doing, it depends on the post. You can be doing, I've done like 150 interviews a day. So you can imagine, right? If I hear 100 times a day that I would like to go to the United States for to visit for tourism and see all the beautiful places in New York and Florida and XYZ. And you can get this in any kind of category, something like that, which is really generic. I'm saying about three sentences worth, but it's not particular to me. Anybody else can also say that. So you
Mhm.
want to make it a lot more specific for you. You want to define that. Like, I would like to go in December to New York, Washington, and Boston because I really want
Mhm.
to experience Christmas at that time. Plus, I'm going to do New Year's Eve there, and then I'm going to come back in about 2 weeks because I have XYZ happening. So that is a lot more substantive use and effective use of your approximate three sentences.
Okay, so rather than sounding scripted, you should sound more spontaneous, right?
Yes, yes, that is the key. You want to be really conversational, and
Right.
that's really important. I tell people it's a very very brief conversation that you're having with a visa officer. You want to be confident, and you want to just speak to them a lot more casually. And this will bring me to another point that a lot of times people feel like they need to be really really formal. So every
Mhm.
time yes officer, yes sir, yes ma'am, to every single thing, and or they will make the mistake of repeating the question in a statement form. Now, if you do that, you're just wasting your precious time. You're wasting a whole sentence, which you can instead use to be specific. So that's really important. You want to cut that kind of out. You just go straight to what matters, basically.
Right, because sometimes what the viewers think is, or what the candidates often feel is, often they think that the interview is an exam that they have to pass, right? But it's not an exam; it's an interview that you have to appear for, right?
Yes,
So
yes, it's
yes,
very different. It's very
yeah.
different. It's also culturally different. It depends on where you're applying from. I'm not sure exactly where. I mean, the audience I think seems to be from everywhere, but it can
Mhm.
depend on the culture. In India, it's very different because here in a position of authority, or if in a job interview, you want to answer what's been asked, or you want to always be polite and say yes sir, etc. For an American visa officer, that stuff doesn't matter. Okay, they are pretty open. They just want you to be kind of direct with them and just tell them the
Mhm.
things that they need to know. Make it efficient for you and make it efficient for them as well.
Okay, okay. And before I take my next question, Swati, I would also like to ask, because you said you have handled 150 interviews in a day. So, does it I mean, has it ever happened with you that you in a day you rejected more candidates than approving them, the more
I
number
mean,
of
it's
candidates
happened.
you
Yeah, it has happened, but it's not. I think this goes to a larger question of some people think that are they already predetermined? Are they already going to decide that this many people have to be approved today, and
uh,
etc. There is absolutely no quota system for any consulate or embassy in the world for the U.S. visa process. Okay, so they don't
okay.
have something that says, well, today, your manager doesn't come and say, well, today we've got to deny 80% of the people, or today we got to approve 80% of the people. It just
Right,
doesn't work like that. Okay. And
right.
honestly, it doesn't work like that. So, yeah, there's nothing predetermined. You will get an interview. It's actually frustrating for a visa officer and it's exhausting for a visa officer. And it's kind of sad for a visa officer when we do end up having to deny more people. Like in the day, if I've done
Mhm.
150 and that day is not a good day, then I might have not a good day in terms of just the kind of pool of the applicants I've gotten, and I end up having to not get so many approvals. I don't like it myself. Visa officers
Yes.
do want to be able to approve you,
Yeah.
but they need to be able to justify. They're putting their name behind that thing that's going to stay in the system forever. So they
Right.
need to be able to justify why they're approving you. And if they just don't have a good case, then they can't do it. So it does become also frustrating for a visa officer when they can't approve you, or a lot of people in a day.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much again for answering the question, Swati. Now, let me quickly move on to our viewers' question because they really, really are waiting to get an answer from you. Okay, Twin Sisters has posted a question and she says, I have a gap for doing video editing that I chose after my HSC. So, my question is that will it be a problem for getting a visa?
Okay, so I think a gap question mostly applies for an F1. This probably is an F1 because in a B1, B2, a gap doesn't really matter, right? So because your
Uh-huh.
intention is probably not that. So assuming it's that, okay,
Uh-huh.
you will want to explain why you had that gap. So if you had the gap because you were doing video editing, is it in line with what you're going to go do? Or even if it is a B1, B2, let's say you're going to go for a film festival, for example. Okay. So you completed high school and then you did an internship where you were learning video editing and you did that for maybe 6 months or a year, and now you're working and now you want to go for this film festival, for example, then that gap makes sense, right? So you have to make it make sense to the visa officer. What did you do in that gap? Why did you need to take that gap? And was it relevant to your situation? That's the more important thing. A gap in itself is not a no-go, and not an automatic no-go.
Right, right. Okay, so twin sisters, I hope you've got the answer. And now I actually have a very interesting comment that I would like to read. It is from Saurabh, and he says, while you were answering my questions, he actually posted something. He says, "No, they won't let us speak. If we do, they interrupt and says, 'Don't speak a word. If you do, I'll permanently ban you from getting in the US.' What's wrong with that Indian?" Okay, I would not like to read that. So, would you like to make a comment? This also happens, Swati?
I think, maybe he's referring to, I don't think I'd like to entertain this so much just because of what he's typed, but I think that maybe he's referring to a visa officer that he feels that might have been in a bad mood.
Right.
So, or something like that. But that's not the standard. Okay. So that is not a way a visa officer should behave. If you did receive that kind of treatment,
Mhm.
I can apologize on behalf of that, even though I'm not a visa officer anymore. But that's not the way that officers are trained to be. Okay. So we are
Right.
front facing customer service reps for the US government, basically. We have a job to do. We're doing our job. So the law is already presuming you're guilty. That is how you're approaching the visa officer. They already assume that you do not qualify for this visa because that's the way the law is written. So you have to explain to them and prove to them why you do that. And I think, Saurabh, you're the one that asked that question. So in that very first thing, when you got asked that one question,
Mhm.
if you can give a powerful opening in your approximate 3 sentences, that in itself can turn the game for you. Okay. That can
Right.
lead to the visa officer then wanting to listen and then wanting to ask you something else.
Okay. So, Saurabh, I hope you've got the answer now. Now, let me quickly move to Hardil's question. So, Hardil says, can I ask E2 visa category? No, not in this episode, maybe in some other episode where we are going to take up that topic. But for today, let's stick to B1, B2, guys, because I can see a lot of questions we are getting from B1, B2. So, let me take. Okay, so I even I'm confused because there are too many questions. I really am confused who to pick because I don't want to upset anyone. So maybe I let me take Patrick. So Patrick says, "Hello, Patrick from Uganda. My question is: during my application on DS 160, I put the address where I will be staying, but the person I will be staying with won't be available at that time. Can resell hotel? Okay, I'm
I
trying
wonder if
to."
he's asking, can I reserve a hotel or does he need to reserve a hotel? So um,
Yeah.
maybe that's what he's saying.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Can I reserve hotel as add? Oh, maybe he wants to know. Maybe can I add the hotel address? Is what that you mean, Patrick? If you can please confirm.
Right. So either way, okay. So
Mhm.
sometimes this does happen. So if you are not going to be, if you are going to be staying with that person, then you can leave that address. Okay. They may or may not be available, but you can, if you're still going to be staying over there, that's the address when you're going to leave. But if you decide because they're not available that you're going to book a hotel instead, then you update it to put the hotel address instead.
Okay, okay. So now I have a very sweet question. So Smile is here and he says, "How can I make the visa officer's job easy? What a visa officer expect from an applicant?"
Oh, Ismail, thank you so much for this question. It is a very nice question, okay? Because
Yeah.
that's the goal. You want to make the visa officers kind of, they want to be able to preview. Like I said, it's kind of hard for
Mhm.
us when we can't, right? So, but
Right.
we have to justify it. Okay. So if you could, we love being able to approve a visa in like 1 or 2 questions, or maybe 3 questions. And usually, it's even the third question is not needed, and it's just to kind of wrap up. So what that means is that you have given us such a fantastic interview. You have given
Mhm.
us clear information. You've added specific things. You've talked about your strengths. You've done all of that so that we don't need to ask you follow-up questions or make it a
Mhm.
lengthy interview. And we can quickly approve your interview without even needing to ask for a single piece of paper. So that is what you can do. You can just be like direct with your answers, add your strengths in there each time, be complete, don't be generic, don't be memorized, don't be robotic. All
Mhm.
of these kinds of things will help you out a lot, and it makes a visa job a lot easier when they can approve you in just a matter of 1 or 2 questions.
Okay, so Smile, I hope you've got the answer now. Thank you so much for such a sweet question. And it makes me so happy that you actually want to make the job, or the job of the visa officer easy. So I hope all the applicants are like you, and at least they think like you. So now let me quickly take John Venture's question. So if you remember, Swati, he said he was denied 5 times I visa, and he says I visa is a category for journalists wanting to go and cover an event in the US.
Okay, and now he wants a B1B2.
Right.
Okay, so his question was, can he still get a B1B2?
Mhm. He
Yeah,
said
so you
after getting rejected 5 times for I visa, can he travel to the US through a B1 B2?
Okay, so it will probably be difficult because you've had so many rejections on a different kind of category of visa, even if it's not a B1, B2. Just the fact that you've had numerous kinds of denials, that will
Mhm.
anyway still show up. That in your B1, B2, when you go, they're going to see the 5 times that you applied for an I visa. So that's going to be relevant even for your B1, B2. All right, you will still need to explain, why do you want a B1, B2 now, or why did you want an I visa so many times before. So it will come up, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you can't ever get a B1, B2 just because you didn't get an I visa. So they'll also want to, if you're a journalist, they'll then also want to probably check that, well, because he couldn't get an I visa, is he now trying to go on a B1, B2 to do the same thing of an I visa? So they're going to want to also know that the third thing I was talking about, are you going to use this visa correctly? So it will
Mhm.
come into play, but it doesn't mean you can't get a B1, B2 because you had I visa rejections. It'll just be a lot more
Okay.
difficult.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, for your question. Let me quickly move to Joseph's question. So Joseph says, my parents were refused a B1, B2 visa in 2013, but later received 3 visas. In 2022, they were placed in AP, and after 2 years, their case was closed. My father recently reapplied and was approved. His second part is in under a minute. Is this good news for my mom's upcoming interview? Do they know he was in AP and was approved?
So your mom is still, if they're interviewing separately, your mom's still going to need to qualify on her own merits this time around. And you can use your dad's approval to help her in the way that she can mention it in the interview, saying that, yes, I've had a visa 3 times before, and my husband recently also got his visa renewed. That's how she can use it to her benefit.
Mhm. Okay. Joseph, I hope you have got your answer. Thank you so much. Let me quickly, because I don't think we have enough time, Swati. It's already been an hour. Did you realize that?
No, I
Yeah.
did not. Yeah, it's been an hour.
Amazing, right? So if you have some time, let me quickly take 2, 3 more questions, and then we can wrap up the show.
Yeah, I think we'll have to. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Deborah is here, and he says, when you go for a second attempt interview, do the officer already knows the amount of scholarship you have already through your first attempt?
Yeah, especially if you brought it up. Okay. So, and either way, you'd want to bring it up. So, because it helps you. If you have a scholarship that is helpful to you, this
Mhm.
is again for an F1, clearly, but usually in the cases, you might have had a less scholarship before, and now you have a higher scholarship. So, it's to your benefit to bring it up, regardless that you had a scholarship. All right. And
Mhm.
especially if you brought it up before, they're going to want to know. And if you didn't bring it up, you should bring it up. Actually, it will help you.
Right, right. Okay, let me quickly take one more question. Thank you so much. I hope you have got your answer. Andinet says, I have a plan to visit US with my wife and my kids as a family in the coming January. What's your best advice for you? What is your best advice you have for me? Please tell.
Okay, so I think you should probably apply for your visas together as a family, have the same interview date, and then you will want to make a plan. If you have it in January, you will want to make a clear plan about what you're going to do, why do you need to go in January, how long you're going to go for. Again, the other advice I've given, that's the same thing that's going to apply for you. Make sure you're elaborative about the strengths in your profile. Make sure you're answering in approximately 3 sentences of information. Be
Mhm.
specific. Why is your whole family going right now? What is the purpose for them to go together? Maybe if you have a strength such as this is a vacation and you guys normally travel internationally once every year or once every 2 years, then use that to bring that up in your interview. That, I take my kids when during their summer vacation, my wife and I, we take our leave then to coincide with our children's summer vacation, and we go once a year internationally for about 2 weeks. So now we're going to go and take the trip to Disneyland for about 2 weeks. So make sure you add anything, which in this case is a strength, to your answers.
All right. So thank you so much again, Antoinette, for your question. I hope you have got the answer. I also asked people, please let us know where you're watching the show from. So people have also started commenting about that. Hussein is actually watching it from UAE. And then we got a comment from Uganda. And then Tahir says, thank you, ma'am, from Pakistan. So people are really watching us from all over the world. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us from all over. And let me take one last question for today's show. So I really want to take a good question. So let's see who that lucky person is. Okay. Okay, let's take Musa's question. So Musa says, how long does it take for your B1, B2 visa to get your passport after approval from embassy?
So that will probably be dependent on this post, okay, and how they're processing and kind of their supportive services are. So I know pre-pandemic, when I was actually working there, it would take about 2 to 3 days for you to receive your passport with your visa. Depending on the post, it can be a little bit longer. Depending on maybe your location, it could be a little bit longer. But generally, within a week, if you've been approved, I would say is a safe bet if you have to get your visa. That would probably be an approximate good bet for you to consider.
Okay, okay. So Musa, I hope you have got the answer. Thank you so much for your question. And I can't say now if you have a follow up, please let us know because we won't be able to take your follow up. People really are commenting. From India, from Cameroon, and then Kintu says from UAE. Lots of love to all of you, and thank you so much for joining this session. And okay, I think that's it, guys. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's show, but we will try to get Swati very very soon, maybe for another topic. Swati, how did you like the show today? Before I ask you one last question, I mean, if you can, please tell, because we didn't even realize it's an hour, right?
Yeah, we didn't. It's so easy to talk about this for a long time. I know. So I loved it as usual. I love being on the show. Thank you again for having us from Argo. This is what we do, right? We have the experience under our belt. Please do reach out to us if you need genuine assistance, because this is our expertise, and we have officers from all around the world that have served in all parts of the world, that have done all sorts of categories of visas, and we speak all sorts of different languages. So the team will match you up with the right fit consultant for
Mhm.
you. And then they will help guide you through it, get a questionnaire filled out by you, which we use as a base, so it helps us. And then book however much time you can book with us, and we will help you out as best as possible. But it really does it does make a big difference for people. So I think in just even the understanding. So please do reach out to us at hello@argovisa.com.
Mhm.
You can, ask for any of us. My name is Swati. I'm happy to help you. I'm glad that, and I hope this was helpful for you guys today. So thank you again for having us.
I'm sure it was, guy. And people are already saying thank you a lot. So even Akbar is saying thank you very much for useful information. God bless you all. Thank you so much for the lovely comment and feedback, Akbar. And uh, again, Swati, thank you so much for being here. We loved having you on the show. We can't wait for our next episode. And guys, we already have a link. On the screen, you can to book a consultation with Argo Visa experts. You can follow the link which is mentioned on the screen, and also you can, like Swati said, if you want to get in touch with Swati or other Argo officers, you can mail them at hello@argovisa.com, and you can also visit their website www.argovisa.com to book a consultation with them. Yes, please book a consultation, and I'm sure it's going to be worth it. So again, thank you so much, Swati, for being here. One last question before I let you go. What advice do you have for the applicants who are waiting for their visa to get approved?
That are waiting for it to get approved, as it they
As in,
have an appointment.
or maybe what I mean is actually wanting to go for the interview, and their interviews are coming soon and will be going to appear in the interview. So what advice do you have for them?
Okay, I would say that go prepared. Make sure, don't take it so lightly. You don't, just make sure you take the right amount of time to prepare for it. You don't want to be memorized, so don't fall into the trap of, maybe just going to a dime a dozen kind of agents, or just following a bunch of groups that say this is what you're going to get asked, because it's not actually that way. So we can make it case specific for you, but don't take it lightly. Do all your preparation. Watch, even if you don't book a consult with us, there's so much information out there that we've already given that you can check out, which is free, right? Check us out on all the videos we've done on our YouTube for Argo. Check us out on all the posts that they do. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. See all the videos, because so much of that is already, the information is already there. So we do have clients that come to us that said, oh, I saw your video on YouTube, I saw this and stuff. So they already are taking that effort to invest in their case. They already have done that. So I highly recommend that for any applicant.
Okay. Right. Again, thank you so much for that lovely advice, and thank you so much for being here. We, like I said, can't wait for our next episode. Thank you so much, Swati. It was great having you on the show, and yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, and good luck to everyone.
Yes, and guys, thank you so much for tuning in such great numbers, and constantly posting your questions. Swati's advice and insights were not only practical but also truly eye-opening. It's not every day, that we get to hear directly from someone who's personally adjudicated close to 100,000 cases, right? So we are so grateful for Swati for her time and for breaking down that what can often feel like an overwhelming process into something much more approachable. So thank you so much, Swati, for being here again. And guys, we are soon going to come up with another webinar. So keep on watching, keep on subscribing to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, bye for now. I'm Rajni Bharara signing off. See you in another webinar very soon.